Hello and welcome back, goats, to the Big Blue Purple channel. Today I want to talk about a game that I've been playing the absolute fuck out of as of late. So recently on a whim, I decided to pick up Monster Hunter Rise. I've been kind of bored of 14 lately and just wanted to mix it up in my gaming palette because I really haven't been playing much else. My experience with the Monster Hunter series is very brief. But the only experience I really had was as a kid, I played the demo for Monster Hunter 3 Ultimate on the 3DS. Back when I had a 3DS, I didn't have fucking money for games, so I tried every demo that came out on that goddamn eShop. Because of that, I played Monster Hunter 3 as a kid, and I was not a fan. It was way too hard for me, it felt clunky, I had no idea what I was doing, and I never even beat the demo. Fast forward to about 2 years ago, where Monster Hunter World was extremely relevant, I decided to pick that up and give that a shot because all of my friends really liked it. I then proceeded to drop the game and go play other things because yet again, I felt the game was clunky, I didn't get it, I didn't understand how Monster Hunter worked, and I just didn't think it was for me. But having Rise recommended to me by quite a few friends, I decided I would give Monster Hunter another fair shot. And man, I gotta say, this game is fucking fantastic. So many elements of this game are just perfect for me and what I like in a video game, and the more you play Monster Hunter, the more its gameplay loop and how it works becomes clear to you, and the more you can enjoy it. In fact, the first day that I played Rise when I picked it up, I was not having fun at all. The game felt extremely clunky, yet again, I didn't know what I was doing, I didn't even know you could change weapons because they just started me with the longsword, and I wasn't a fan of it. So I decided to go on YouTube and watch some guides on how to play Monster Hunter because I just felt completely in the dark, like it didn't make any sense. And God, I gotta say, these guides helped a fuck ton on my enjoyment of Monster Hunter. As soon as I watched some of these videos and started to understand more about how the game is built, it made so much more sense to me, and the game just kind of clicked. On top of that, I decided to try out different weapons and ended up settling on the Insect Glaive. The Insect Glaive is like this super mobile, jump around and spin around on your enemies type weapon, and it is so fucking fun. You have to gather these 3 essence with your insect buddy, and when you get all 3 of them, you get like a ton of buffs. It's this really fun playstyle of getting your 3 buffs and then going in for insane uptime and damage, and then getting back out and getting your buffs again. It scratched like a Dragoon itch for me as someone who plays a little bit of Dragoon in 14. Oh my god, the diving wyvern move on the Insect Glaive, chef's kiss, beautiful. I've been enjoying this weapon so much, in fact, that I have almost 100 hours on the game and have not switched off of it a single time. And what's so crazy about Monster Hunter is that every single weapon in the game, I believe there's 15 of them, are just completely different and play like their own class. It's like they're all their own fighting game character and they work completely differently than each other. There's so much optimization to be done in Monster Hunter. The more you know about the monster you're fighting and the more you know about your own weapon, the more you could do to kill it even faster. When you get to the Sunbreak expansion in Monster Hunter Rise, you also get a second moveset that you can switch to on the fly, and you can customize both of those movesets to be whatever you want. This made me fall in love with the Insect Glaive even more, because now any boss where I felt the Insect Glaive was kind of rough to use against them, I have a new moveset where I can switch to it and potentially have a much better chance fighting that monster. I think the Glaive's 2 different jumping attack options are the best example of this. One of them is the Jumping Advance Slash. This is the Insect Glaive move that everyone knows, the one where you jump up in the air and you spin around a shit ton and then jump back up off the enemy. For the base game, generally this move is really good, especially in the early game because most monsters don't have a very high vertical hitbox. This is until you reach Tigrex, whose entire fucking body turns into the hitbox of a tree every time he uses an attack. For this boss in particular, I found it way easier to stay grounded with the Insect Glaive and not use that Jumping Advance Slash, even though it's probably the best way to pour out damage on the Insect Glaive. That's where the new Kinsect Slash from Sunbreak can come into play. Instead of jumping into the enemy and spinning around a bunch, you do a big straight plunge towards the enemy which bounces you back out safely, and you can do this up to 3 times. It's almost like a poking tool for the Insect Glaive in the air, and it still does good damage. While maybe not as much as the Jumping Advance Slash, it's still really good for those monsters where you can't keep the Advance Slash on them all the time. And that's not even mentioning the various Kinsects you can change for your Insect Glaive, which give you completely different playstyles pretty much depending on how you decide to use them. For the base game, I was mostly using the dual color attack Kinsect. This just made it so I got 2 essences at once every time I hit the enemy with my bug, and one of those essences will always be damage, which is the most important one. Fast forward to Sunbreak though, you get some new Kinsects, and one of them in particular is my absolute favorite in the game right now. It'll leave this little trail of powder on the ground after you've done enough assist attacks with your Kinsect. Basically, there's attacks in your moveset that utilize the Kinsect to attack with you. After you've done enough of those, it'll leave this powder on the ground. If you walk through the powder, it'll give you 20 more seconds on your triple buff, or if you only have 1 buff or 2 buffs, it'll give you your 3rd one, and if you have 0 buffs, it'll give you all of them. So, basically, this powder allows you to keep permanent uptime as long as you're being aggressive enough. At first it was kind of a daunting shift being so used to the dual color one and not really having to think about my essences, but overall this one just increases your maximum damage so much if you're playing properly. Either way, I've now spent about 6 minutes gushing about my weapon and not even talking about the core gameplay loop of what Monster Hunter even is. When it comes to Monster Hunter, the title really does absolutely describe the entire gameplay loop. You get thrown into a massive open area and you need to hunt a monster. You're given 50 minutes to do so. Around the open area, you can get these things called spirit birds, which give you different buffs. These can increase your stamina, defense, health, damage, etc. These buffs only last for the duration of the hunt though. Each hunt you go into, you'll have to recollect spirit birds, provided you want the buffs. The higher the rank the monster you're fighting, the more likely it is that you're going to want to get a bunch of spirit birds. Another part of the game that I absolutely love is the puppet spider. The puppet spider spawns on each map in the game, and when you pick it up, you can take it over to a monster, use it on them, and you'll be able to ride them for free. Riding monsters in this game is one of the coolest fucking features ever. You can get on top of a monster, bring him all the way over to the monster you're trying to fight, and just beat the shit out of him. Monster Hunter just really is one of those games that gets a lot more fun the more you understand about it. Really understanding that you have 50 minutes to kill this boss and that you have the entire area around you to prepare for that is how Monster Hunter works. The monsters don't have health bars either, which is one of my favorite little touches in this game because it adds so much excitement to each and every fight. You never know when the monster's gonna die. The only indicator that shows when the monster is low or capturable is when you see the little blue almost dead icon under their picture. I love that this is the only indicator because it's just like the victory lap. As soon as you see that, you're like, oh my god, we're almost there, or we could just capture it if it's not an Elder Dragon. One of the greatest things about this game is how the monsters actually behave. They feel real, they actually have behaviors that make sense for a monster. They don't just sit there and take it from you, they'll run away if they don't feel like they're winning. The monsters running away is like this small detail that really makes you feel more like you're a monster hunter. You're the one hunting this thing, it's not hunting you. I love how when some monsters get low and run away from you, they'll go fall asleep wherever they end up. It shows that even these giant beasts can get tired from the amount of fighting and damage you put onto them. Another part of the game I really want to talk about is the upgrading system and just gearing and progression in general. This really does something for me as someone who likes grindy ass games. After you defeat a monster in Monster Hunter, you'll be able to skin it, or if you captured it, you'll just get the materials at the end. With these materials, you'll be able to craft unique weapons and armor based off of that monster. Some of the materials you're going to need for the weapon or the armor might be rare, some even below 12% drop rates or lower. Some parts only drop if you break certain parts on the monster's body, let's say you cut their tail off or break their wings. It makes it so when you're farming the same monster over and over again for a certain armor set or weapon, it stays fresh because you need to focus on what you're doing to make sure you break all the parts that give you bonus rewards. One thing I'm actually not a big fan of, especially in the base game here with gearing up, is that because Sunbreak came out, they kind of put in this catch-up gear set, I believe, called a Guardian set. It's a weapon, not a gear set. But this weapon basically just outscales every monster weapon in the game all the way up until Nargacuga, and Nargacuga's is only better because it has great affinity and white sharpness. So if you get into Monster Hunter Rise now, you don't actually get to have very much fun gearing up until you get to the DLC. I suppose you could choose not to use the champion's weapons, but they're so easy to upgrade. All you need is like rare bone materials, which just drop from bone piles in the high-end zones. Compared to, let's say, grinding a Zenogre for a couple hours to get his full armor set and weapon, and then realizing that it doesn't even compare to the maxed out champion's glaive. I understand why they put in this catch-up system for people getting to Sunbreak, but I also think it just kind of taints the base game experience for new players. On the topic of things I dislike in Monster Hunter, let's talk about Rampage quests. This is one of my least favorite things in the game, however, it can be pretty fun when you get a full team of people for it. Rampage quests are basically like fucking tower defense quests in Monster Hunter. You have to set up a bunch of ballistas and cannons and try to defend your base from monsters. This is all fine and dandy until you realize that the best part about Monster Hunter is going in and hitting them with your big fucking weapon. In my opinion, at least, it's really fucking boring sitting on a ballista, a cannon, an artillery, whatever the fuck it is, and pressing one button to do decent damage. The counter signal is definitely the best part about Rampage as an entirety. It gives you like a fucking 10 times buff to your weapon damage and you just get to go ham. Either way, I'm not a huge fan of this game mode personally, but I know some people might like it, so I don't want to write it off as horrible or anything. It's just not my thing, and if you're doing it solo, it is utter hell. Thankfully, there's only like 2 or 3 required Rampage quests throughout the main story as you go through it. But if Rampage is really the worst part of the entire game, then this game is pretty fucking solid altogether. I absolutely love some of the designs on these monsters. Rajang is one of my favorite monsters. He's this big fucking monkey in the footage in the background you're seeing. He bangs his chest and he shoots lightning and shit. He's really cool. To name some others that really stuck with me, the Gormagala is one of my favorites, and he probably has my favorite armor set that I've seen so far. I also really fuck with Astalos, super cool looking boss. Malzeno was an awesome Sunbreak boss. There's so many cool monsters in this game, and they're all so fun to learn. All in all though, I've just been playing a fuck ton of Monster Hunter Rise lately, and just wanted to make a video talking about how much I've been enjoying it, and kind of break down what a new player might think about Monster Hunter having barely any experience with the other games. I think many people, even good Monster Hunter players, would agree that at first it just feels so clunky, and if you can't get past that, you're never going to get into the game. But once you figure out how everything works and how the game is supposed to be played, it just clicks and it feels so damn good. There's such a large variety of monsters to fight, and the gameplay loop never really gets boring, especially when you have 15 different weapons to change between that all function completely differently than one another. Like I said, I've only really been using the insect glaive since I started, but I've been pretty interested in the hunting horn as of lately, and I also want to check out the switch axe. And hey, if you're a Monster Hunter player and maybe you play insect glaive or you fuck with the insect glaive, give me some suggestions. What other weapons might I like that are similar or just have a very mobile type of playstyle? If you're big into the Monster Hunter series or also recently got into it like myself, I'd love to hear your stories down in the comments below. What was your first Monster Hunter game? Who's your favorite monster? What weapon do you main? Stuff like that. Let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the Big Blue Purple channel if you're not already. We're so close to that 1,000 subscriber mark. Help me hit it. Anyways, thanks for watching. Get out there. Play yourself some Monster Hunter.